Today we're going to start looking at how to solve using the trig ratios. So before we start looking at solving, let's review our word to help us know when to use what. So our phrase that we have is so ka toa. There you go. So talks about for sine, we want the opposite side over the hypotenuse. For cosine, we want the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. And for a tangent, we want the opposite over the adjacent. So we're going to use these today as we look for some missing sides. So we're going to go through, take them one at a time. We'll start with sine, then we'll look at cosine, then some tangent. So first we will look at sine. So here it tells us to use the sine to solve for x. If it does not tell you what to use, then you can look and see where our angle is. So here we can see here's 40. We're looking for x, which is on our hypotenuse. And then here we have both sides. So we could use cosine or sine, but it asks us to use sine. So how we'll write this is we'll write sine, and then in parentheses, I want the angle. So the angle is 40. And then I'm going to use my fractions that we learned. So remember sine, we're using so. So that means we want the opposite side over the hypotenuse. So here, 40 degrees, that's my angle. So I want the opposite side, which this time is 7, over the hypotenuse, which we already found is x. So this is where I can put this in the calculator. Sorry, my brain is not working. So on the calculator, the first, very first thing we have to do though is go to mode and go down twice to where it says radian. We want to go over to degree because our degree this time will be in degrees. Since we have an angle, that little circle up there means degrees. So make sure you've gone, again, that's mode, and then you go down twice to the radian, and you want over degree, press enter. So degree should be black. So now I can use the numeric solver. I can go math, up, enter, and the first part of my equation is sine 40. If you look here in the middle of your calculator, we have a button for sine, a button for cosine, and one for tangent. Each of these are here, and we get to use them. So I'll start with sine, and then I want 40 in parentheses. And then in box 2, I want 7 over x. So I'm going to get a fraction. I'm going to do 7 over x. Then I can press enter, and to get my answer, I want alpha graph. Let's see what it says the problem is. This is correct. Let's try this. There we go. Just didn't like x being 0 for starting. So If you were getting that message on your calculator, just stick another number there and then alpha graph, and it'll get our answer. So our answer here is 10.89. So x equals 10.89. All right, let's look at another one. Here, number 4, if we look at the angle, here is 50 degrees. We can see we've got x, which in relation to 50, here it is opposite 50. So since we have opposite, and then here we have 18, which is across from 90, that's our hypotenuse. Since we have an opposite and a hypotenuse, we want to use sine. So again, we'll set it up just like we did on number 3. So I'll do sine, and then my angle, which is 50, equals, since it's sine, I want opposite over hypotenuse. So I want x over 18. And again, I can go to my calculator. I can go math up, enter. And this time, my sine is 50 degrees. And then in my fraction, I have x over 18. So I press enter, alpha graph. My answer is 13.78. So for number 4, x equals 13.78. So again, with this, we know how to put it in the calculator. It's just making sure you set it up correct and change your calculator to degrees. Let's do one more, number 5. Again, it tells us to use sine to solve for x. We're going to skip over that part. We're not going to worry about that. So, sine, let's see, here's 26. So I've got sine of 26 equals, for sine, we want opposite over hypotenuse. So 26 opposite is x over our hypotenuse across from the right angle is 27. So in my calculator, I can go math up, enter, sine of 26, and then here I need x over 27. Press enter, alpha graph, and we get x equals 11.83. So we're using what we learned yesterday and then putting it in the calculator. All right, let's look at cosine. All right, cosine. So as a refresher, cosine is so we're looking for the adjacent over the hypotenuse. All right, so number 1, here is 15 degrees. My hypotenuse is across from the right angle. So then my adjacent is right next to it. So here I can have cosine of 15 equals 22 over x, because I want adjacent. So adjacent was 22 over hypotenuse. My hypotenuse was x. So in our calculator, we can go math up, enter, but no more. I don't want sine. This time I want cosine. So here's cosine of 15 degrees. And then my fraction is 22 over x. Press enter, alpha graph, and here we get x equals 22.77. Let's look at another one. Angle, here's our angle. Across from the 90 is my hypotenuse. And then, let's see, 61, and x is adjacent. So we've got adjacent, we've got the hypotenuse. So I want to look at cosine. My angle is 61 equals cosine, we want adjacent over hypotenuse. So the adjacent side is x over the hypotenuse is 18. So again, I go back to my calculator. I go math up, enter, cosine of 61 for this question. And then my fraction is x over 18. Press enter, alpha graph, and here we get 8.72. Ta-da! All right, one more cosine. So let's see, my angle, 30 degrees. My hypotenuse, here's my right angle, so my hypotenuse is across. And then we need to solve for x, which is right here. So if my angle is 30 degrees, x is adjacent to 30 degrees. So since it's adjacent and hypotenuse, we want cosine of 30 equals adjacent over hypotenuse, so x is adjacent over the hypotenuse of 20. So again, calculator, math up, enter, cosine of 30, and then we want x over 20. Alpha graph, we get 17.32. All right, so we've looked at sine, we've looked at cosine, and the last one we're going to do is tangent. So here is tangent. So for tangent, we can remember SOHCAHTOA. So tangent is opposite over adjacent. So if I start number 10, I've got my angle. And then if we look at the hypotenuse this time, the hypotenuse is empty. There's nothing there. So that means from 12, I want to look at the opposite from 12, and I want to look at the adjacent. So I'm going to put O for opposite, A for adjacent. So if we set up tangent of our angle 12 equals opposite, so my opposite is x, over the adjacent, which is 15. So that's the hardest part with tangent, is remembering it's opposite, it's looking across, over the adjacent. So I will go math up, enter. Again, no more cosine. Now I want tangent, so it's that third in line, of 12, close parenthesis, and then here I've got x over 15. So we press enter, alpha graph. Here I get 3.18. All right, and I'm just going to do one more, just number 11. We won't worry about number 12. All right, so on number 11, if I look at my angle, I've got 58.1. I look at my hypotenuse across from the right angle, and it is empty. So that means I need to use the opposite and the adjacent. So the opposite is across, adjacent is right under. So again, that means I'm using tangent of, here it's a decimal, 58.1, and then I want the opposite, x, over the adjacent, 28. Go back to my calculator, math up, enter, tangent of, this one is 58.1, and then x over 28. So press enter, alpha graph, and here we get x equals 44.98. So this answer, x equals 44.98. Okay, I know that was a lot. I feel like I went fast in the video. If you have questions about how to set it up, how to put it in your calculator, please ask. And don't forget, you need to change to degrees every time. I'll add a note at the top of this so it'll be on the copy. All right? Let me know if you have any questions.